Is Game of Thrones worth watching anymore? Well, Season 4 was kind of disappointing, wasn't it? I mean, I really did feel like Season 4 was the worst season so far. It's the weakest season so far. And it's definitely the most, should I say, disappointing, underwhelming, and just overall boring. I found Season 4 kind of boring, actually. It's not to say that I didn't find anything interesting about it or worth watching about it, but certainly is the weakest out of the 4 seasons that I've seen. First of all, I'm not a die-hard Game of Thrones expert. I never read the original novels that was written and started in the 90s, I should say. So this entire thing is still, it's kind of a novelty for me. I only started watching last year. I've heard about, Game of Thrones since 2011. So that's going on, 3 years ago. And that was the first season, I think, or the early seasons. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of like Game of Thrones. I just assumed, judging from the face value and seeing the ads on YouTube. Once in a while I'll see ads. I've stopped watching television at that point in 2011, but I would hear about it, like, oh, Game of Thrones, it's this fantasy themed show, and I kind of just assumed it was Lord of the Rings style, in that fantasy realm, swords and sandals kind of thing, a medieval style fantasy type of show, and I wasn't quite sure if it was good or not. I wasn't the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I appreciated it, I thought it was great movies, but if it's more like LOTR, then I'm not really that interested in it. So I gave it a shot last year in 2013, a year ago, and I watched the first episode, and I got hooked. I thought it was a really good episode. It drew me in. The introduction of the characters, what was going on in this storyline, the different families, the kingdoms, all of that was very interesting. So I watched all of the seasons, the stuff that I missed, every single one of them in like a marathon. Within a week I finished the entire, 30 hours, really, because it was 30 episodes, season 1 all the way to season 3. Great stuff. And from every single season there was something worth checking out. There was something worthwhile. I thought that the storylines, the way that they seamlessly continued, and it just felt like you had to keep watching. Every episode got a hook. It made me feel like it was a great thing to watch. There was character development. Everything about it was great. Let's move on to season 4. Okay, it's a year later, and the thing with me is that it takes me a whole year to watch this stuff, meaning like I never watched it on TV. I don't wait, week after week to watch it on HBO, because I don't watch television. I've never watched it since like 4 years. So I basically watched all of it in a row, every single episode of season 4. And this was just really boring. There was something wrong with this season, with season 4. This 2014 set of episodes, these 10 episodes, there was some good, but most of it was just kind of not that great. It was just kind of underwhelming. It was kind of disappointing. So I basically waited a whole year. And to be honest, I don't know if I want to keep watching this thing. Do I want to watch season 15 next year? Season 16 in 2016? The next couple of years, the future seasons, is that even going to be worth it for me? Should I wait another year for these 10 episodes to come by? My gut feeling says no. And here's it's the problem. Let's talk about season 4. Let's actually talk about the stuff that just did not work for me. Number 1, they killed everybody that I liked. All the characters that I was into are basically now dead. They were killed off. You're talking about, okay, Joffrey. Joffrey was killed off. I liked Joffrey. I thought he was a good heel. He was probably the best heel in the entire show. The best villain, heel, whatever you want to call it, bad guy, enemy, antagonist. He was great. I liked him. He had charisma. He was psychopathic. He was an absolute maniac. He was a killer, and I liked it because he was the most extreme guy on that show in terms of like the violence and just the unpredictable nature of his character. So I liked that. It was a draw for me. It was a reason for me to keep watching. And then they just killed him off in the most anticlimactic way ever. You know, the way that they killed him off and the way it happened was kind of a letdown. I thought it was going to be a big build-up, and he finally gets his comeuppance. Somebody finally gets him, but in a very epic way. This was very underwhelming. Alright, let's talk about another one that got killed off. The redhead wildling chick, you know, the archer, the one with the bow and arrow, the one who basically was with Jon Snow. And now she was out to kill Jon Snow, and she was, you know, she was great. I liked her too. I thought she was probably the sexiest female character in that show. I don't know what it is about her, but she had, again, another one with a certain charisma. I don't know if it's her look, her attitude, that whole thing, her accent. It was just great. I thought she was a very sexy character, and I liked her. And then she also dies. And she's gone. Just like that, she was dead. Now, I think the way that she was killed, the way it happened was very ironic, and it was a nice little twist. But you kind of hope that they got together in a real way, that they, you know, something happens between them where they patch it up and they get back together. But instead, Jon Snow loses her just like that. So that was kind of lame. And who else died? Yeah, even that Spanish guy, whatever he was, he had a Spanish accent. That guy that wanted revenge against the Lannisters because the Mountain, you know, this monster of a man, did stuff to his relatives. And the way that he died was pretty damn... It was brutal. I'll give you that. It was a very horrific fatality, finishing sequence. But it just felt like, okay, the way it was done was in a more of a shock value kind of thing. They did shock value. It feels like every death has to be a shock value now. Like every single death scene has to be this very traumatizing experience that catches you out of nowhere. And the main difference between this death scene, which will probably be talked about and be compared with the Red Wedding from the previous season, is that the Red Wedding, or the Bloody Wedding, that one was actually emotionally wrenching, but in a very shocking way. And after that, it seemed like now they're just doing it for shock value. Now it's like, oh, okay, we gotta have another gory, crazy scene where the baby face gets destroyed. The baby face, the good guy, the hero, the would-be protagonist, or one of the good guys, seemingly gets killed off in such a horrific way. And it seems like, again, that's like a shock value thing, more out of the purpose of having shock than, I don't know, like a good, nice payoff. It was a letdown. It was a disappointing, oh, damn. Instead of, oh, okay, that was nice, or, you know, that made sense, or, wow, that made me actually feel good about watching this. It just felt really terrible watching it. I don't know. That was a bad death scene. I understand why it happened, and I'm guessing they're building up the Mountain, this Mountain character, and he's gonna become maybe a zombie character. I don't know what the hell they're gonna do with him, because they're gonna try to bring him back. You know, he was poisoned or something like that with the poison effect on him, and now they're gonna try to bring him back. They're gonna heal him, and now he's gonna come back stronger than ever and probably more vicious. Who knows what's gonna happen with that character? He just came out of nowhere for me. You know, they just built up this backstory like, oh, he went after the guy's sister and he did all these horrible things. It was just... It felt like it was shoehorned in. Anyway, what's other problems with Season 4? I mean, there was just so many things. There was predictable scenes, and just unbelievable stuff that happened too, like stuff that I just couldn't suspend my disbelief. For example, the kids. I thought the kids were ridiculous in this season. They were doing outrageous, like, unbelievable superhero type stuff here, where it's like, what the fuck? Is this Kick-Ass or something? You got the kids basically fighting off, you know, grown adults, grown men and shit, you know, killing the girl with the hound, you know, for example, the young girl with the short hair. I forget the characters' names. I don't memorize them because there's so many characters in the fucking show that it's hard to memorize every single one. They talk in a certain accent, so I can't understand every single name. Some of them have nicknames, so you know, one's named Ari and the other's named somebody else. The names that really stand out are just the main ones, the ones that have a certain sound to them, like the Lannisters, and the Targaryen, the Daenerys Targaryen. Yeah, those, the Khal Drogo, you know, the Khal Drogo, Khaleesi, you know, certain names stand out, but most of them are just very forgettable names, or just, I can't remember them. Jon Snow is an easy one to remember, Jon Snow. We all know Jon Snow, but even the female chick, the redhead chick, I don't remember her name, the wildling, I forget her name, if they even, you know, mentioned it. So, yeah, that's what sucks about it. There's just so many characters, and so many different backstories, and different intertwining storylines within the story. And what the hell was I talking about? Yeah, it was unbelievable. The kids, you know, the girl being so like, oh, she kills everybody, and she's just good at the sword, and she's a skilled fighter. It's just like, okay. There's that magical kid, the kid that, like, he blacks out, and his eyes turn white, and then he fucking goes inside other people's bodies, like he hit the wolf body, and the big Hodo guy, Hodo, that big mountain guy. Well, he's not a mountain. He's like a big, round, tall guy. He's like a, you know, muscular Dumbo, I guess. He's kind of slow in the head, I guess. And yeah, he blacks out, and then he takes over his body, and now all of a sudden he's inside a guy's body, and he's like controlling him like a puppeteer. You know, it's just silly. These magical moments come across as like really goofy, because the Game of Thrones is sort of like a mix between realistic, historical type things, realism, and then you have certain magical shit, magical elements, and supernatural stuff, and fantasy stuff that's... It kind of makes it look weird. It makes it kind of unbalanced. And then when the magical stuff happens, you're just like, oh yeah, this is a TV show. It's a fantasy TV show. I forgot. Right. It takes me out of the experience, you know. So that's another problem I have with the Season 4. And I just found it really boring. The dialogue was boring. There was a lot of, like, talking segments in these episodes. Especially there's this one episode where, oh my god, the imp, you know, the dwarf character, and he was talking to his brother, the 40-year-old Lannister, you know, the guy with a missing hand. He lost his hand. And they're talking to each other inside the jail cell, prison cell thing, and, you know, they were talking about one of their cousins was crushing bugs because he was, like, mentally retarded or something, or he got injured, so he was kind of slow in the head. So all he would do was repetitively crush beetles, and he would just do that. Chunk, 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 whatever the hell sound effects he was making. I thought it was a really boring story. It went on for like 20 minutes. I was like, is there a point to this fucking story? And he was like, I wonder why he kept doing it. I kept wondering. I guess it was trying to make a metaphor about, you know, why are people killing each other in this world, in this fantasy setting, and why is everybody so violent? And everybody has to murder everything. Why? What's the purpose of it all? I understand that, but you know, if that was the message, then yeah, I can see that. But it's still a boring story. It just sounded so fucking awkward and bizarre. I don't know. Underwhelming season. I'm just not a fan of season 4. There was some cool stuff in there. I mean, I liked certain things, certain character development involving, you know, the fat guy with Jon Snow, and then he was, you know, his girlfriend Gilly with the baby. I kind of like that. It advanced their relationship a little bit and established the fat guy. I forget his name, that fat guy. Yeah, he kind of became more important in the storyline. Kind of wanted to root for him because he's such an average Joe, you know, and he's likable character. You got the walkers, those ghost zombie things, the White Walkers, whatever the hell they're called, or the undead, basically. They're zombies, basically. And they have some sort of magical powers, and they can turn babies into fucking zombie creatures like them. So they're sort of, again, undead creatures, whatever the hell they are. I don't really understand them. They seem to be very powerful and very strong, but I don't... If they're so powerful, how come they haven't taken over the world by now? You know what I mean? Like, well, what's going on with this stuff? I just can't follow it. They're too mysterious, you know? I don't know enough about them. They just seem to be this vague threat, this distant threat that will, you know, it's looming in the distance, but it can come any moment and destroy everybody. And I just, the backstories kind of become forgettable. What else? Jesus. There was some cool stuff between, you know, the Hound and the kid. I thought that their relationship, the chemistry between them was nice. You know, that was kind of cool. The crazy woman, the Stark sister, you know, the crazy aunt that lives in that fucking area, and then she's with her son, coddling him ever since he was a kid, and you know, she was insane, and she ends up dying too. She's another one. I thought she was interesting, and then they killed her off. So there's another interesting character that was killed off. And then the thing with the girl who's the female character. What the hell is her name? Not Daenerys, but there's another. Okay, let's talk about Daenerys for a second. Daenerys, aka the Dragon Queen, the woman, the blonde woman, Khaleesi. Yeah, she's kind of boring now. She's kind of a boring character too. Like, I find her boring now. I don't find her interesting. Ever since they got rid of Khal Drogo and that whole relationship with the what the fuck were they called? Their race. But yeah, that whole thing ended, and then she went off, branched on her own, and she got her army, the Unsullied, and all these other characters around her. She's just not as interesting to me. She's, you know, she's very pretty, nice to look at, and that's about it. I don't know the purpose of her character, except that she could be the one to win this whole thing, that she becomes, you know, the Game of Thrones final champion, or the king or queen, or whatever the fuck she becomes. You know, the rightful throne or whatever. I just don't find her interesting anymore, and she was really boring in this season. She didn't do anything. She got the dragons locked away, so the dragons are turning on her to create, you know, unstable relationship, try to make it more, you know, more problems, causing problems, but it's, I don't give a shit about her problems. You know, I don't care what she's dealing with now, because she was booked really strongly in the previous season. You know, she came across as really strong. She was they were building her up into a top player in this Game of Thrones. But then this entire season, it feels like she didn't really do much. She just kind of invaded another land, took it over, freed the slaves, and now she's got a bunch of problems. I don't know, the Khaleesi, yeah, she was great in the first few seasons, and especially with the whole Khal Drogo thing, but then ever since he died, her storyline was just like, whatever. Yeah, so the other chick, the virgin chick, you know, the young woman who's being hit on by that other guy, that creepy guy with the mustache thing, with the thing, and she's kind of okay. You know, she's an okay character, a sympathetic character. The daughter of the female Stark that died in the wedding. She was the wife of the imp, I guess. They were engaged or they were married. It seems so long ago when that shit happened. And I don't really know what's going to happen. Like, I don't really care what's going to happen to her because she doesn't seem that interesting. I don't know. There's a lot of uninteresting stuff. It just comes across as kind of bland. It seems like it's prolonged, you know? It seems like they're trying to stretch it out as much as they can into the next couple of years at least. And supposedly the thing is going to end at season 8, maybe. So 8 seasons of this Game of Thrones, and that's gonna maybe the ending. I understand that the book series, there's a bunch of books as well, and I mean, I don't know if those are going to be coming into play. They're going to be integrated in the storyline, in the, you know, the ending, or, you know, so to speak. Yeah, season 4, just it basically did not make me excited for upcoming seasons. You know, season 5, season 6. Do I really want to wait a whole year to watch all these episodes? Do I really want to wait a couple of years for season 6? I don't think so, you know. It was just kind of underwhelming. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other problems that really bugged me, and I'm forgetting them right now, but it really did feel like a really uninteresting season. And that's a shame, because Game of Thrones is one of the best TV shows I've seen in the past 10 years. Along with Dexter, when Dexter started, and there's another show, Dexter, that kind of fell off after a couple of seasons. You know, it was really interesting, really hot at the beginning, and then they just kind of fizzle out. They're just not as good as it used to be. The storylines become a bit more boring, you know. And I guess that's just the way with most TV shows, but with Game of Thrones, it feels like an epic movie that you just gotta keep watching. But if it's turning into shit, it's not as interesting, then okay, well, I guess it's time to end it, or, you know, stop watching it, I should say.